all right, cool. We don't have too much more. All right, the next day, I'm on the page 58, by the way. The next day, following a 5 in the morning roll call and a pancake breakfast, Charlie and Silas headed out to camp with their drums. On the way, Gorman told Charlie the routine of the day. There are a dozen of calls you got to learn, Charlie. First is a reveille, which comes at dawn. At 6:30, after breakfast, the soldiers clean up the camp and their quarters. The guard mounts at 8 for their duty of the day, guarding the camp. At 8:30, the men drill on the parade ground till noon. After lunch, they have free time to write letters and things like that till 2. And from 2 to 3:30, they'll drill some more. Then they're dismissed to get ready for retreat and dress parade. After that, at 7, they have supper. And at 8, they come tattoo and roll call again. And they go out to their quarters. 9 o'clock comes taps and lights out. Charlie volunteered. At 9 o'clock, the Bowery's just getting warmed up for the night. What does he mean, just getting warmed up for the night?
Go to sleep.
Getting their day started, going out to cause some trouble, right? That may be, but down here, it's bedtime comes early. Charlie asked over the soft nicker of the horse Gorman was driving, "What do you have to learn to be a soldier?" "Plenty. How much forward and by the flank and obliquely and then to shift arms. The musket, I mean, how to fire standing, kneeling, and prone, and bayonet fighting. I'll drill and I'll drill. And some days I'll have to stand inspection with all my equipment cleaned up and spit and dust. Then that day I'll march out to the parade ground with my regiment, stack my musket with the other ones, and lay out my knapsack for the officers to poke around in. And..." "Tired of this," Charlie interrupted. "But do you get to fight?" "Oh, yes, I will, now that I'm not just a drummer boy anymore." "Just a drummer boy." Charlie felt silent while the wagon went slowly along the lines of the tents and cabins, individual soldiers getting ready for the long morning drill that would turn them into an anonymous, many-legged single unit. Once they were into the woods, Gorman told Charlie, "I'm taking us to the place that Captain took Fallon when he was learning the bugle calls. It's far enough away so nobody can hear you drumming. We're going to the edge of the wilderness." Charlie looked about him at the tall trees, soon to leaf for spring, lining both sides of the wagon. There were more trees here in Virginia than he'd ever seen before in his whole life. Away from the camp, early blooming wildflowers dotted the tall grass like tiny stars of many... Thank you. Wasn't this a wilderness? He asked. "What's the wilderness?" Gorman laughed sharply. "A special place. A wonderful place full of trees and brush and vines so thick you can't see more than a couple yards in front of you. They used to mine for iron in here 100 years ago, and they cut down all the big trees to feed the fires they needed to smelt the iron. The trees that grew back once they stopped iron mining grew back real close together." Hey guys, what does this remind you of? The field trip at Hanging Rock. Remember what the forestry people told us to do? Put our arms out, and that's the space the trees need to grow healthy. So these trees have that. They're all growing like we were standing out there in the parking lot, real close together. Because when they're all growing at the same time, they're all vying for that piece of land. You'll be seeing the edge of it today. Where we are right now ain't no wilderness at all, if that's what you're thinking. And for a while, Silas whistled, and then he asked Charlie, "Say, do you notice how different it is here in Virginia from New York City in the nighttime?" Charlie nodded his head. It seemed to him that he'd scarcely slept at all the night before for hearing bird calls and strange, high-pitched piping noises. He tried to imitate the piping to Gorman. He got a laugh in return. "I've seen a lot of different birds down here I don't know the names of. Some of them even whistle back at you when you whistle to them. That high noise you heard comes from the toads, little tiny ones. They're real early this year," says Captain Mahoney. "Toads?" exclaimed Charley, who had never seen a toad. "Hundreds of 'em, Charley." Oh, they rode the rest of the way in silence. Finally, Gorman pulled the horse to a halt, got out the drums and the sticks, and said, "Get down. I want to show you something before we start practicing." Charley followed Gorman up a narrow dirt road, bordered by many young trees close together, with very heavy undergrowth beneath them, and stopped when he did. Silas Gorman was staring at a wooden board on which letters had been scratched, or more than carved out. Corporal William Garrett, C.S.A. Gorman said softly, "That's where a dead rebel's buried, Charley. There are graves all over here, Yankee and rebel. They're kind of shallow because they were dug in a hurry. People who come down here find bones and skulls and pieces of gray and blue uniforms." "Was there a scrap here?" "Yes. The Battle of Chancellorsville was fought around here last year before Gettysburg. The rebels won. Do you want to look around some? We got the time." Even with his back warmed by the Virginia sunshine, Charley found himself shivering. "No, thanks," he said. He didn't relish the thought of seeing skeletons and skulls. He wanted to ask Gorman to take him somewhere else, but if he did, the other boy would think he was a coward. So keeping quiet was best. Gorman, who didn't seem to notice Charlie's nervousness, attached one of the drums to the sash he wore and put the sticks in his belt. Then he put the other sash over Charlie's head and attached an identical 14-inch wide, 12-inch deep wooden shell drum at his left tip. Handing Charlie the sticks, he said, "First, I'll go through the beats I use for the daily calls, and then I'll teach you the calls for forward, rally, and the commands you'll need to know when we go to fight. Do what I do after I do it. I ain't got much time to teach you, so pay attention. Some of the calls will come easier than others." Taking the sticks from Silas, Charlie straightened up as tall as he could, steadying himself to learn to be the next drummer boy of the heroic and famous New York 140th. But before he hit the drum for the very first time, he asked Silas, "Could a Confederate cavalry patrol hear us?" Silas told him the rebels were camped somewhere to the south, and he didn't want to see a Johnny Reb without a musket ready. Gorman said matter-of-factly, "Oh, maybe. They know the paths in and out of here. Nobody ever knows where the cavalry is. They can come at you from anywhere. Our own cavalry, too. Just try not to think about them. Anyhow, Charlie, the wind's blowing towards the north, so that's where our sound will carry. If it turns around and starts to blow south, we'll quiet and get the wagon and head for Culpeper. Now, I'll show you how to do a ratamacus. Listen good, and then try it after me. And don't expect to do it right first off." Charlie's hands were sweating, but he took a firm grip on the drumsticks and stood waiting for Silas Gorman, who gazed intently at him with lifted sticks before he brought them down on his own drum.